Hi, so today I'm going to show you the Fuji X100. The first thing that you should probably know about this camera is that it does not have interchangeable lenses, so the lens that is built in is the only lens that works with the camera. You can't swap it out. There are external attachments that you can use with the camera to change the effective focal length from 35 millimeters to 28 millimeters. I think also 50 millimeters. I'm not sure if there are additional attachments, but I personally would not recommend them because to me the X100 series of cameras is about the simplicity of having one focal length in a compact body and not having other attachments to worry about or worrying about swapping out lenses. If you're using focal length changing devices, at that point you might as well probably be getting an interchangeable lens system instead. When I bought this camera, I did get the lens hood attachment, which you can see it's dented. I got that because I'm somewhat on the clumsy side, and I felt that it was a good idea to protect the lens, but that's not for everybody. And if I were doing it over, I would have gotten one of the aftermarket lenses, or lens hoods, because that would have been a more economical way to achieve the same result. The other thing that I will tell you about the lens hood is that when you use the built-in flash, the lens hood does somewhat block the flash, so that's probably another reason in favor of not using a lens hood unless you're anticipating, a lot of situations where you might need it, if people might be bumping into you and your camera. That might be a reason to use it, but if you're using the flash, I would not use the lens hood in that situation. Another thing about this camera is the firmware. When you're getting this camera, I would make sure to update it to the latest firmware because if it still has the firmware that the camera shipped with originally, the menus and everything were much slower, and just overall the user experience of the camera was much lower, and it improved greatly once you updated the firmware. So that's something that I would do immediately when you get this camera, and it's very simple to do that online using Fuji's website. This lever up here is the lever that you use to change between a digital viewfinder and an optical viewfinder. So that's a useful feature if you prefer one over the other. Moving along to the lens, as you can see, the aperture is adjustable using an aperture ring, which a lot of cameras today, or a lot of lenses I should say, don't have anymore. And that's, to me, one of the big charms and pluses of this camera is having adjustable aperture right on the lens. It also has an auto mode if you wanted to use that. You could set both the aperture and the lens to auto if you wanted, and that would be essentially P mode. You could also use shutter priority by setting the specific shutter speed that you want and leaving the lens on auto, or you could use aperture priority by setting the aperture that you want and turning the shutter speed onto auto. So there's a variety of possibilities there, or you could do full manual mode and set the aperture and shutter speed to whatever you want, and the camera will take the photos according to what you have set there. The exposure compensation dial up here does have a tendency to get knocked out of place. This is an error that was corrected in later versions of in later entries into the series, but it's something that you should be aware of because if you put this camera in your pocket or in a bag or something, by the time you take it out, this dial may have spun, and you want to be sure that you have it set to 0 if that's what you're intending to do. So that's just one important thing that you should keep in mind. We also have a hot shoe up here, so in addition to using the built-in flash, you can use an attachment flash if you prefer that. Also, the on-off switch and shutter button has a cable thread release, so if you wanted to use a threaded cable release, you could do that. I have instead installed a soft shutter release button just for ergonomic reasons. This is the FN button, and you can use this to, you can dedicate one of various functions to it. I like to use the neutral density filter and have that be toggleable using this button. So the camera has a built-in neutral density filter which you can use to basically lessen the amount of light that gets into the camera so that you can use different shutter speeds to get certain effects. So that can be a useful thing to have, and that's what I have set to this button, but there's various possibilities of things that you could have assigned to that button. Moving along to the back of the camera, we have of course the display screen, and there are various modes that go along with it. Right now I have it in eye detect mode, and so when these sensors here detect if you are looking through the viewfinder, and if so then it will, or it is also activated if you stick your fingers in front of it or any other object. So as you can see, it's toggling between the display being in the viewfinder and the display being on the back of the screen, so it's nice that you don't have to take your eye out of the viewfinder to review images that you've taken. You can also have it just show it in the viewfinder only, and you can have it just showing it in the display screen only. So you have some different options there depending on what you prefer. There is a diopter here, so if you wear glasses you can adjust this setting so that you get a clear image that you're looking at. This over here is a magnification setting, so you can sort of get a zoomed in view if you want to take a finer look at what would be in the image. There is also a RAW button, which you can reassign to something else if you always take RAW photographs. You can use this for something else, so that's nice. That's only with the later firmware did this become a user reassignable button. So that's another reason to make sure that you update the firmware when you get this camera. So on the bottom of the camera, we're going to turn it off. We have of course the tripod mount down here, and we have the door, which is sometimes gets a little bit stuck, but if that happens you can use this sort of get more leverage to open the door if it got stuck. The batteries do go in several different ways, but only one of them actually works, so that's something to keep in mind. The memory card is also here as well. It takes a regular SD card, and one thing that I will say about battery life with this camera is that it does go through batteries pretty rapidly. I would say I get somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 to 350, maybe a little less, photographs on a fully charged battery, so you may definitely want to get a few extra batteries or aftermarket batteries, and possibly an extra charger, an aftermarket charger, so that if you're taking this camera on a trip you can make sure to have the batteries topped up before you go out for the day. Otherwise, if you only have one battery, you're probably going to run out of the battery before you're done exploring for the day, and that would definitely be not the greatest thing. So those are the main features of the camera, and I will also show you some photographs that I've taken with this camera, because it's not only the camera, it's also the lens, so I feel like it's sort of a camera and a lens review in that sense. So that's the Fuji X100. I've had this camera since 2012 and I've definitely liked it a lot. If you have any questions about it, you can ask them in the comments section below and I will try to answer them if I am able to. If you found this review helpful and you want to see more videos, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel. Also, if you're considering purchasing this camera, you can purchase it through the affiliate link that will be in the description, and it will get, you'll be paying the same price as normal, but a small percentage of your purchase will go towards keeping the channel going and helping me to be able to do more reviews in the future. So that's it for the review. Take care, and I will see you next time.